Hello everyone, this is Gary from iField Test channel. Let's learn together to become a full stack tester. From today, I'm going to share a practice using Postman to do the API automation testing and using Jenkins to do the CI process. And I will, based on the TreatMe website, pick 10 typical APIs to demonstrate the API automation testing and CI process. TreatMe is New Zealand's largest online auction and class fields website, and TreatMe Sandbox environment is a completely independent copy of the TreatMe website, API, and database. It makes sense since we are not learning a tool, but using a comprehensive automation testing solution to face the real business. When you meet any problems or think of any suggestions in reproducing the practice, very welcome. You leave a message for discussion. In this video, I will first talk about the technical testing structure for this practice. Then, I will briefly introduce the panorama of this practice. After that, let you know the overview of the TreatMe front-end UI and back-end API sets. Then, to guide you how to prepare the related environment before running your first API testing. Finally, I'll show you the effect of running the first API testing. Let's start. The technical testing structure is as below. The practice uses Postman to code the API testing scripts and uses Newman to generate reports. After that, we use Jenkins to integrate the above process. Then we continue to use Jenkins invoke Git to push reports to GitHub. Finally, we use Jenkins to trigger the Node.js script to invoke the email function to inform stakeholders about the reports. As a terminal user, you can freely browse TXT or HTML reports, browse repository instructions, or articles that describe the practice process, or download the demo repository. As a tester, you can also trigger the Jenkins job to reproduce this automation testing and the CI process. This picture shows you the panorama for this practice. You can see before starting your first API testing, some preparations you need to do. From the TreatMe front-end side, you need to register a user. From TreatMe back-end API side, you need to register a sandbox application. Meanwhile, you get the consumer key and consumer secret. Continue to finish authentication. You get the token and token secret. Combines with consumer key and consumer secret, Postman can fully get authentication to access all the TreatMe APIs. You can also install all related tools before getting started your first API testing, such as JDK, Jenkins, Git-Bash, GitHub User Register, Postman, Node.js, and Newman. before you code your scripts, you need to figure out the relationship between backend APIs and front-end UIs. This will make you have a clear mind about the dependencies to develop an API testing script. You can see all Postman environmental variables generated in the process of scripting. Combined with scripts, we get the basic materials for generating reports. And before the chicken CI process, you could run Newman at your local to generate TXT and HTML reports, so that you can confirm the reports are fine. Finally, you can build your CI process. To integrate all API testing related works, push report to GitHub and email to stakeholders. Let's move to the overview of TreatMe front-end and back-end environment. TreatMe sandbox front-end UI like this. Register a user and choose some typical transactions from UI side, then to point to the corresponding APIs from the official API documents. See the backend API's documents entries like this. Sequentially read them like the API reference, write down all the API's format. Follow this, you can easily code your testing scripts. Register your application page, show you how to register an application. Based on this, you could continue to get the authentication so that you can directly send the API request to get the same effect as operations from the front-end UI page. Now let's do some preparation work. First, we need to get a front-end user. Fill in the information in the form and click create your account. You will get your front-end user. Let's try to create an account. See, we have registered a front-end user, and let's log in. Yeah, we have already logged in. And continue to register your application. My TreatMe, API applications, developer options, register a new application. Fill in the info and click register. Here we need to notice these two fields you have to fill in info. Otherwise, you cannot get your authentication info at the later step. Let's try to register. See, we have already registered an application, and we get a consumer key and a consumer secret. Now we need to get the final authentication. Yeah, fill in our consumer key and the consumer secret. Try to generate the token. See, our callback domains need to have some adjustment. Yes, we have some unnecessary extra info. Update it. Let's try to regenerate the token. Okay, this time we have success. Allow it. Then we have already finished the authentication step. Given that we have already got the authentication information, we can start our first API testing. We have picked two APIs: retrieve general categories without authentication information, and retrieve your watch list needs the authentication information. Let's see the API details. See, retrieve general categories. At the requires authentication field, the value is null, so that means we don't need fill in the authentication info. And retrieve your watch list requires authentication fields, value is yes, that means we need to fill in the authentication info so that we can get the authentication to access the API. And retrieve general categories, the depth value equal to 1 means we could get all the subcategories. We could use this value to test the API. Let's move to the Postman. I have already filled in the request related info. We can see we don't give any authentication info. We give a first test to send a request, see whether we can get the right response. Okay, we have already got the response. You can see we got all the subcategories, right? Then we could move to the retrieve your watch list, and we could fill in the authentication information. In the authorization label, type as auth 1.0 and add authorization data to request headers. and the signature method equal to plain text. Then we just fill in our previous authentication related info. Fill in the consumer key, consumer secret, then auth token. After that, token secret. See, we have already filled in the authentication information. We could try to send the request, and we have give the base URL as a environmental variable. See, base URL is our request domain. Now we send the request. See, we get the response because we didn't add any item in the watch list, so our response total count is 0. That means we have already get the right response. Till now, we have quickly gone through our first API testing, so let me wrap up this video. First, we talk about the testing technical structure for this practice to know what are the tools we are using in this practice and what you can see from GitHub or what you can do from your local Jenkins. Second, we give a quick view of the panorama to this practice to know what are the preparations we need to do before getting the start this practice. Third, we go through the process of registering your Treat.me Sandbox user, Treat.me application, and the process of getting the authentication. At last, we pick 2 simple API request examples. One doesn't need authentication, and another one needs to check the connectivity using Postman. The next video, we will go through all the 10 typical transactions from front-end UIs to back-end APIs to find their relationships or dependencies. If you like this video or series, don't forget to click subscribe. Your encouragement would be my motivation to publish full-stack testing related practices continuously. See you next time.